Late this afternoon, the search for Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner shifted to the Pearl River near Philadelphia, Mississippi. Boats carrying game wardens and FBI agents are now dragging the river.
Have you seen the spot down here, sir?
That's right.
What do you think of this?
I believe him joke was planned and sitting off up there in New York laughing at us Mississippi folks.
Can you tell me what you think of this whole thing?
Well, I believe it's a big publicity hoax, but if they're dead, I feel like they asked for it.
In the summer of 1964, Andy Goodman got training in how to register African Americans to vote as part of the growing civil rights movement in America.
People should be expected to get beaten. They should expect to spend in jail, and it may go beyond the summer when they're in jail, and that they should expect possibly somebody to get killed.
Then he traveled to Mississippi and wrote this postcard to say that he had arrived safely. The people in this city are wonderful, he wrote, and our reception was very good. The postmark, June 21st, 1964. That was the same day Goodman and fellow civil rights workers James Cheney and Mickey Schwerner went missing.
They were stopped by the police, accused of speeding. They were put in jail, and they were not allowed to make a phone call. And they were released at night. They got back in the car, and the Ku Klux Klan nabbed them.
For the latest on the search for the three missing boys,
the men's disappearance made national headlines. President Lyndon Johnson ordered federal agents to Mississippi.
I asked Hoover 2 weeks ago, after talking to the Attorney General, to fill up Mississippi with FBI men and infiltrate everything he could. What do they think happened? Think they got killed?
This morning they had absolutely no trace. There's no sign of the automobile. They have found nobody who's seen the car or the three people. So as far as they're concerned, they just disappeared from the face of the earth.
It wasn't until August 4th, 1964, that their bodies were found.
Thousands of law enforcement agents for 44 days were looking for my brother's body and James and Mickey. They dredged out of the swamps 9 black bodies who no one had even heard of. There's multiple levels of tragedy in this story. One of them that is most poignant for me, besides losing my brother, was that it took 2 white kids to legitimize the tragedy of being murdered if you wanted to vote.
And it took decades to achieve any kind of justice for the murders of Andy Goodman, James Cheney, and Mickey Schwerner. 18 men were arrested in 1967. Half a dozen were convicted, but only of civil rights violations. None served more than 6 years. No one was convicted of murder. Jerry Mitchell, an investigative reporter in Jackson, Mississippi, began looking at the case again in the late 80s.
Jerry Mitchell is a unique, wonderful hero. He said, this is unfair. Just like what Andy said. He found evidence and wrote about it so much that he just embarrassed the powers that be to get on it.
Thanks to Mitchell's reporting, the state reopened the case, and in 2005, Ku Klux Klan preacher Ray Edgar Killen went to trial for the killings. Killen was found guilty of manslaughter. Now 89, he is serving 60 years in prison. It was a long overdue measure of justice for the victims' families, including Andy Goodman's mother, Carolyn Goodman, herself a prominent social activist, who called for justice but opposed the death penalty.
She and my father decided the issue is to let America know that this is not about hatred. This is not about revenge. My mother was against capital punishment. She was more interested in letting people know this was her son who was murdered. He didn't do anything bad. He was living the American dream.
Stephen Smith, CBS News.
Some of you have seen them video clips before, but for those of you that are new, I wanted to show this again because I'm going to take this message from a different angle. And unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about some race here a little bit. I never try to pull a race card or anything like that, but we have to be real. The church, as I say, we talk about issues that the church run away from. That's one of my sayings, and we have to do this. So, I have the notes. The notes are here. This whole thing is full of notes, guys. But, I was thinking how God has smoked out. I have on here how he has smoked out false converts, false Christians. This is what I believe has been going on through this exposure of various things that has happened over the last several years. And because I show you this video of Edgar Ray killing, many of you that know the story of the civil rights workers that went down there in the summer of 1964, Andrew Goodman and James Chaney and Mickey, and they were there to try to get the blacks to vote. For those of you some of you in the country may not be familiar with this story, but you've seen there in the clips. And boy, they didn't like the way that they did not want that at that time. They didn't like, because we had to stay in our place. And I have on my notes here, I have on here that they were, I've talked to people that, older people that's lived in the era, even here in the Midwest, in Ohio. I have a coworker that's black that told me in the city of Dayton, Ohio, as a kid, he had to walk with his head down as he approached any whites or crossed the street and all of that, right in the Midwest. And so it's not only what's going on in the South and everything, all of the chaos and all of this racial tension, but we're going to focus in on the spirituality in the church, because I'm going to show you that there's a bunch of false converts out there that are masquerading as Christians, and they've done the damage to everything that you see of why we are in this situation that we are in right now. And these people, the Edgar Ray killing, he was a preacher. He was supposed to be a preacher. Ain't that something? He's sitting up there preaching on Sunday and go lynch somebody later on in the evening or whatever. 32 murders. 32. As you see here, that he's confessed to.
Rights workers. Now, we must warn you, some of the words may be a bit offensive. 16 WABT's Trevel Island talks to the man about why Killen opened up to him.
Ray Killen as to count 1, guilty of manslaughter.
Mr. Killen, do you have any comments?
It's hard to believe that a convicted member of the KKK would tell his story to a black man. But after a year in the state prison system, locked up in the same medical ward as Edgar Ray Killen, James Stern claims he became Killen's confidant.
Did he ever admit to you any crimes that he committed that no one knows about?
32 cold cases of murders that he personally participated in. He personally performed himself, yes. I says, I'm a black man. I said, you got a few white guys in here who's trying to suck up to you every day, fellow Klansmen. I said, and he says, as you can see in some of the letters he writes, he says, I respect you more than I respect any of them. He said, you're a highly intelligent nigga. And that was the first time he called me the N-word.
By not reacting to the N-word, Stern thinks Killen opened up to him even more.
And so that was the only trial, and there were 18 Klansmen that went on trial. 7 were convicted, one of them being Bowers. The rest of the 18 walked. And so Bowers ordered those killings, but Bowers, what he said in this interview is he was quite delighted to be convicted, have the main instigator of the entire affair walk out of the courtroom a free man. He was referring to Edgar Ray Killen, or Preacher Killen as he's known locally. And so I called him up, and we talked for quite a while, and he said, there's some guy in Jackson just keeps stirring things up and stirring things up and stirring things up. And I didn't have the heart to tell him it was me. So I took him and his wife out for catfish, and we talked. And I asked him if he had anything to do with the killings of the 3 civil rights workers. He said no. I said, well, what do you think should happen to whoever was responsible for that? And he said, I'm not going to say they were wrong. And so he proceeded to tell me a story about himself. When Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968, the FBI had no idea at that moment in time who did it. So they started sending, agents out to interview the usual suspects. Well, one of them was Preacher Killen. So one of them, 2 agents show up at his doorstep. One knows whereabouts. On April 4th, 1968, he refused to talk to him. But one of the agents leaves his card. So time goes on. One day, Preacher Killen picks up the card, calls the FBI agent, wants to know who killed King. And Cajun's just like, yeah, why do you want to know? And Killen says, man, I want to shake his hand. And Edgar Ray Killen was convicted on the exact anniversary of the killings of Chaney, Goodman, and Shorter, June 21st, 1964.
And 32 times, and just like when you seen in the video clip, 9 bodies dragged out. You know, these people, and I'm sure that the families called the sheriffs, went and said something. Hey, my family member is missing. Whatever. Oh, we'll look into it. We'll check into it. Or maybe they were afraid to say anything. And it made me think about the current state of evangelicals right now at this moment, as we've seen over the last several years. They act like that they're so against, harm and things coming upon people. Harm and, this in society. They always are claiming pro-life, save the babies, this, that, or that. But you don't see none of them stand up when harm was being placed and danger was being placed upon minorities, as we talked about, immigrants and other people in society, whatever they are, people that are living in sin according to them. And this is the same thing. I was just thinking that mindset, unfortunately, for the blacks that were living in that time frame and throughout the nation in various, especially in the South in the 60s. Could you imagine? I mean, some of you may be my subscribers, you've lived through it. I don't know. But you sat there and you had you went about your day. But these folks ran the town. You couldn't question them on nothing. You had to conduct yourself a certain way and walk a certain way and talk a certain way. And if you didn't do it right, you know what? You might end up in the hands of an Edgar Ray killing later on at night. And you see, and this is what it is with this nationalism evangelical movement. If you don't act right, this is how they've conducted themselves. They have taken it to where, this is our turf, United States of America. Don't you forget it. We founded this place, as they claim, that Christians founded this place. This is what they're saying with this false teaching.
America was founded by a group of Christians. I'm going to try it again. A group of
time allowed it. If they were not engaged in battle, he did it again at 10 a.m. George Washington. Incredible man of God, a man of destiny. That's why he's called the father of our nation. There's nobody like him ever. And if we were writing the Bible today, Washington would no doubt be included.
And you got pastors like the false pastor Edgar Ray killing, and many other pastors that are running around with this crap, telling folks that this is our turf. This is how we do it. This is how you're going to live. And if we don't like how you're living, your sinful lifestyle. We don't like that. And guess what? Because we don't like that, we're going to show you who's the boss, who's in charge. And if we need to rough you up, just like when they came looking for Andrew Goodman, one of the civil rights workers, when they found out that he was supposed to be having a meeting at a church and he wasn't there, and they roughed up some blacks and burnt that church down, burnt it down. And they, unfortunately, when he did get hold of them, got all 3 of them, when they finally got hold of them and killed them all. And this is the thing, and as you see that woman, she's smiling. If they're dead, I feel like they deserve it. But yet, I guarantee you, them guys back in the day, after they got done with their church services and all of that, she better made sure that meal was ready for the boys. She better made sure she had kept her mouth shut. The whole entire town, the whole entire everywhere, they knew Edgar Ray killing was a murderer. They knew the Klans people and the sheriff and all of them were murderers. They knew what they were doing. Even the kids, when the FBI became to investigate and go down there and investigate, they would give the kids candy and can get them to talk. Everybody knew. And as you see, within this evangelical community, they want to act like they're so holy and that they're doing the only thing right in society. But they're silent. They're silent on the sexual abuse that goes on within the church that's been going on for decades. They're silent when all of the boys in the Southern Baptists and all of these folks were being sexually mishandled and marriages and all of the chaos. Silent. And as we see recently, silent when their godlike figure that they worship sit there and put people's lives in danger and speak hate and preach hate, and all of these other preachers behind the pulpit wishing death on people. Nobody has stood up, silent. The Robert Jeffress, as we talked about, all of them silent. These are nothing but false converts, many of them. Many of them. Somebody had said it a while back, I don't know, in the comment section, whatever, but it's true, because I told about that. I was going to make a message about that. I said many of them. You have, just like then, people that went to the Edgar Ray killings, hear him preach. Families show up Sunday mornings, show up and know whether the wife, the sister, the children, and that. The descendants of these people live on. There's a whole lot of little mini Edgar Ray killings everywhere because they ain't been converted. They just more so have that some people, and I'm not saying everybody is racist or everyone is hate-filled in their heart and all of that. But what I am saying is that you have tradition that is going on within churches throughout America, where there's tradition, where families, generational, has went to the same church and nobody's really been converted. You just going because grandma took you. Nobody really has the testimony. You've got pastors that is taken over because maybe their daddy or uncle or grandpa had that church, but they ain't been called to be a pastor. You have all of that. You have people right now, such as corrupt Greg Locke. That's a whole nother video where he won't give the tithe money back. He's been called out, buying properties and new cars and all of this stuff. You have people that are self-appointed pastors. We know, we've talked about many of them on the internet and all of that they sit there and they just want power, money, and fame. That's all they want. And I haven't looked at my notes because some of this stuff has been remembered, but I remember that. As I write on here, I have on here, so if you don't want to get with the program as it was back in them days, and it's not gone to many of the churches, because many folks, as I said, generationally, have not been converted. They haven't really had that experience with the Lord where they've decided to truly turn their lives and give it over to him. They might say, oh, I've been going to church since I was 5, 6, 7 years old, this, that, or that. And then you'll get these pastors. I thought of this, pastors, I've seen it over the years, where some female or somebody, she's a member of the church, been going there, and she loves the Lord. Maybe she's a convert of some sort, but she's decided to date, as I say, a knucklehead, is what I call him. Sometimes they're knuckleheads, but sometimes that's a regular guy. He don't know the Lord at all. And it's obvious he doesn't know the Lord, but the pastor will marry them anyway. And the scripture tells us not to be equally yoked with an unbeliever. And we set up there, and you have this dysfunction, as you can see, because when I go back to my notes, by following their rules of law that they have laid down in their town, that you can't operate as your true self or whatever, because what they want to do is take away, as I have on my notes, your free will. So they want you to shut up, just like they did back in the day. Speak when only spoken to. Keep your head down. Shut up and operate, and you stay on that side of town, or we better not catch you over here at sundown. That's the type of thing that has going on within this evangelical communities right now, and what we are seeing. And and I have to ask the question: why is it you don't see in a majority of black churches folks preaching the Constitution they were all Christian? America was founded as a Christian nation. You don't hear that coming out of black churches and all of this stuff. You don't hear nationalism coming out like that. Why is it a majority of the white and evangelical churches preaching that kind of stuff? Why is it that? Why is it still happening in a lot of these southern areas like that? And what's going on with that? That's an honest question, man. I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not pulling no kind of race card, but it's the truth. We have to have a hard conversation here. What's the deal with that? Why is that? Because many of these people, they want you to have, as I say, you stay in your place as a lost soul out there, because they have not their lives, because they have not been converted, starting with many of the pastors, many of the parishioners, they haven't been converted. They want to take all kind of shortcuts that they can in order to change things in society. And instead, because people can't look at their lives because they have no evidence of fruit or no Christ-like characteristics, as I would say, that folks can't look at them and say, oh yeah, I want to mimic, I see the Jesus in them, and I want to be drawn to Jesus because I see how they're living. No, that's, so no wonder the world is in turmoil. No wonder this nation is in turmoil, because you have all of these false converts out here masquerading as Christians, and God has smoked them out. He is smoking them out, and it's more and more. You're going to see more of these phony pastors being smoked out and all of that. And I have on here, what I have on here? Well, yeah, because as we close it up here, changing the hearts is not the goal of these nationalists, this movement that you see. It's not about changing the hearts. It's not. What does a society really look like to them? You hear so many false narratives that they've placed up. The third great awakening. Oh, this is going to be a joyous. They're saying 4 years of joy. Oh, we're about to have a revival in society. And all of these great things are going to happen now because we've got our Saul. We got our Saul, the king. We've got him now. And this is going to happen. And all of this. Total deception. But at the same time, they ain't worried about souls. They're not worried about reaching these lost people. They're tired of them. They're tired of anybody that's living in sin that they don't like, their particular lifestyle and what they're doing. They rather harm, doom, and whatever comes to them, or they don't care. Get them out of the way. Because just like it was in Mississippi, Philadelphia, Mississippi at that time, we run this town. And we want to show you who's boss, and you're going to submit. That's what they're doing. But guess what? God was going to break them in their pride and their idolization, all of the things that they've got going on. He's smoking them out, and he's going to break them. And you know what? I'm continuing this, as someone had mentioned. I'm not worried. I'm joyous and glad to still be serving the Lord because he will not be mocked. And you're not going to get away with, just like Edgar Ray Killen thought he got away with it. It didn't care. It was 41 years later, his tail got convicted because of that reporter said it was not right that these murders stayed, this at that time, that nobody served time for it. And you know what? As I always say, you think you can get away with whatever you are, serving this kingdom of this world and doing people wrong and mistreating people and spreading the hate and division and all of that kind of stuff. There's going to come a time, just like Edgar Ray Killen, you're going to stand right before the judgment seat of Christ. And as I said in the last few messages, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. So we'll continue to call it out, shine the spotlight on the issues that the church run away from, take the devil head on, punch it right in between the chops. Evangelism for God is your channel. My name is Maurice Braxton. Until the next video, my friends, take care. God bless.